What's going on, guys? Graham Gius and Matthews here with WhatCulture.com. Today, we're talking one of the newest entries into the podcast game. After 6 or 7 months, he's almost on the verge of winning awards, all this great stuff. A lot of success right now, the host of My World with JEFF, JARRETT, Jeff Jarrett himself, WWE Hall of Famer. Jeff, how's it going, my man? How are you?
Graham, how you doing, my friend? I hadn't seen you in days.
I was going to say.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you having me on. We connected and looking forward to chatting. And yes, kind of amazing. On the one hand, I feel like I literally just got started doing My World. On the other hand, feels like me and Conrad, the Podfather, have sort of hit our groove and we're rocking and rolling. And yes, we are waiting as we record this. We're waiting on the results, but regardless, I told Karen this morning, look, to get nominated, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm.
That blows me away. And we did podcast movement here in Nashville, and I got to see some of the data on how many podcasts are actually done. It blew me away, and new ones into the market. So yeah, great to chat, brother. Graham, again, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, Jeff. I mean, like you mentioned, I just saw you a week and a half ago. It was at the Wrestling Universe in Brooklyn. You were doing a signing over there. You're popping up all over the place now, talking about the podcast, doing signings, doing interviews with practically everyone. I mean, you've always been a busy man, but how have the last couple of months been for you with all the success of the shows and all the appearances you've been making all over the country and beyond?
It's kind of surreal in a lot of ways that when Conrad, when we sat down officially, so to speak, to really, I guess you could, when I said, yes, I think I want to do this, but let's really talk nuts and bolts of it. And when we got into it, he said the word platform a couple of different times, and it didn't really resonate with me. Again, I'm so new to the game, but in the world, and I'm obviously very dialed into streaming and as the progression of time, before cable television, that's really dating myself. But as things have rolled along through the years and now doing a podcast, talking about my 35-year career, but it has given me a platform and actually new business opportunities and some that I've been working on literally for years, off and on. And so I got a couple of international projects I'm working on, obviously the podcast and everything that goes with that and appearances. And different interviews and different media hits. I did for Vegas bettors this weekend.
I saw that.
Shop, but about games, which blown me away. I literally get to talk about football and sports and all that, but no, having a lot of fun. And again, I'm stepping into the gaming world, video gaming world. Formed a partnership with a great group in the weeks to come. We're going to be making an announcement on that, and then got some stuff going on actually with minor league baseball. So a lot of fun, lot of moving parts in my world, as we say.
Fantastic. All good stuff. I'm based out of Connecticut. I think you were at the Dunkin' Donuts field here a couple of years ago.
Hartford,
in Hartford.
Yep.
Is that a Yard Goats game? I forgot what it was.
Oh my gosh. Help me out. The name of the team. It's great. And I just can't believe.
I think it's the Yard Goats. Maybe I honestly don't even know.
Yeah. They're great. What an organization.
Yeah.
They minor league baseball is such a different mindset because the ownership doesn't have any control over the players on the field.
Mm-hmm.
So they're selling fun and entertainment, which is obviously right up professional wrestling's alley. So, yeah, that was a fun night. But that organization is so well run and they produce in a lot of ways.
Yeah, they do great stuff. And that was just a couple of years ago. And you mentioned all this stuff that you've been up to lately, all the sponsorships and partnerships and everything else. It's been, you're in the headlines every single day doing, talking about something on your show or new partnerships. It's awesome to see. One thing, it was that same weekend, I think, that I met you last week in New York Comic-Con weekend, which I just came from before I saw you at the Wrestling Universe. It was announced there from Matt Cardona, that you and Conrad Thompson made your Bendy's action figures,
yes.
Which is awesome. Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, obviously you've had action figures that you made before with all the companies you've worked for, but with one being made as part of the podcasting game with Conrad getting his own first action figure, I mean, that's pretty awesome.
It's so cool, and I am, look, I've got I'm partners in a gaming company, and I'm not necessarily a born and raised tried and true gamer, but I'm also not a action figure collector, so to speak, but I've obviously been around the game and been on the business side of both for years and years and years. But the way the world is now, and I'll just say that the pipeline of distribution and how it gets to retail. We did an action figure with Zombie Sailor, and it was a figure that was going to be made in the 90s. And
Mhm.
then the success off of that, one thing led to another. And then obviously Brian and Matt, good buddies of mine, and we collaborated, and obviously friends outside of wrestling and everything else. But they approached me and Conrad, and there's two bendables of me that sort of go to the different eras, and 95 double J and 97, 98, 99. But when I saw the prototypes and the drawings of Conrad, and it just really crystallized to me that there's my world in action figure form. It was so cool. Me and Conrad have done ad reads, and the success off of that, and the feedback, and all the good stuff that comes out of that. But when you when you see an action figure of the two hosts of my world, it's pretty cool, and we're excited about it. And again, that's Brian and Matt's real passion. They know
Mhm.
so much about it, and the history of it, and the ins and outs, and just everything. And I consulted with them on my Zombie Sailor toy deal, and they were a huge part of it. We did a YouTube special for ad-free shows, so it's very, very cool. Everybody can relate to Netflix or Hulu, and we're going to stream this or stream that now, ESPN Plus or the WWE Network going to Peacock. But really, that goes to all forms of entertainment. This what we're doing today, a Zoom call. Uh, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, I'm not sure me and you would have thought of doing a Zoom call as easily it is now. I got
Yeah.
an invite today on a totally different matter, but a business invite, and I actually got a reply back, and they were like, "Hey, is this video or audio only?" And I said, "Hey, I'm going to be in my car, rushing from one appointment to another, but I'm happy to do video." But it's just the world we live in, from bendables to action figures to Zoom calls like this. It's just, and the podcast, we started with that, and that's the reason that sort of brought me and you together, Graham. But again, it's just the world we live in, and the WhatCulture folks that you work with, have always, as they've grown and got their tentacles everywhere,
Mhm.
it's just so cool. They've been great friends of the show. So it's just cool how, I guess you could say, at the end of the day, a third generation guy like me, the technology continues to help grow our industry.
Yeah, and even podcasting is continuing to grow. I mean, it was when it first started. I don't know what the exact origin of podcasting was when it really became big, but it seemed like Steve Austin was like the first one to really enter the podcasting game for wrestlers. Jim Ross jumped in on it, and a lot of we talked about it when I saw you. It seems like everyone has a podcast now, and it's hard to really get success. But you've really broken through that proverbial glass ceiling with your show, and not over like, oh, really get your feet wet over the course of 2 or 3 years. You're having success right now. And it's been 4 or 5 months, which is crazy. I mean, again, podcasting with wrestling has been around for a while now, being hosted by the wrestlers themselves. Was the idea you talked about meeting with Conrad and the idea of a platform and stuff like that? So when you hear podcasting like 5, 10 years ago, is it something that intrigues you? Is it something you don't know a lot about? Is it something like everyone has a podcast, no one wants to hear from me, so I'm not going to do it type of thing? What were your thoughts on that
And
originally?
I just share, and I've shared this in different shapes and forms and fashion, but it's no secret. I've been around a few days, if you will, but telling stories has always been, in so many ways, that the fans don't really understand, in
Mhm.
that, they see us for 3 or 4 minutes a week on TV, or a long match, 20 minutes a week, and then they'll show bits and pieces, and then social media comes along. But for years and years and years, and this is predates me, going 50, 60, 70s, when they used to do car rides on 2-lane highways, not even on interstate. But being in a car is, you can either go to sleep, read a book, or tell stories. And a lot of folks, it's just, I was born and raised on storytelling. That's a positive, but the negative downside it is that I thought forever nobody really wants to hear those stories. And JR and Jim and a lot of folks even today will, their format will be, hey, let's respond to Dynamite or Raw or
Yeah.
SmackDown or Rampage or whatever it may be, and that's cool. But when Conrad sat down and sort of laid out, and look, Bruce, literally, I was on their very first live show, so I've been around the Conrad family a while. But when I heard the format and the thought process, and I've told this story over and over and over, when I watched The Last Dance of Michael Jordan and that
Yeah.
documentary, it was the single most creative game changer to me, because I'm a Bulls fan, I'm a basketball junkie, I watched that and I was so engaged by there's Jordan with a laptop in his hand and
Mhm.
he's watching back old footage and then he responds. It was mesmerizing to me. And
Yeah.
so, storytelling and then podcasting and then Conrad's format and me knowing that, from my Memphis days, Texas, Japan, Puerto Rico, WWF, WCW, back and forth a couple of times, TNA
Yeah.
days,
Yep.
Hall of Fame, all the things that go into it. I said, yeah, I got a few stories to tell, but just it all wrapped in one, I guess you could say one big bow. Yeah, a lot of people have podcasts and it's going to continue to grow. But this week's episode, me and Conrad got a little salty between each other, but I wasn't mad at him. I look at the podcasting world very seriously.
Mhm.
If somebody's going to invest 20 minutes, if people are going to invest and hit play on our conversation,
Yeah.
I want it to be engaging. I want it to be, sometimes it can't always be entertaining, but at least thought provoking. But when the red light comes on, I was
Mhm.
born and raised this way. Give your best effort, and so that's how I view my world. And with the research and it's kind of been amazing when the research team does some things, how it jars my memory on certain places and times. And there's some, I'll just say there's some folks within the ad-free family like, man, your memory is jogged on the most unique stuff like what Denny's you were at or what Waffle House or
Mhm.
what hotel. But I guess that's how it goes.
I think that's what makes, in my personal opinion, one of your podcasts, one of the better run wrestling podcasts out there. I mean, listen, they're all great. They're all entertaining, not to take anything away from any of them. But as far as your memory in detail goes with these podcasts, because, wrestling is no easy business. I mean, you take a couple chair shots to the head, you could forget a lot of your career. I mean, we've known that from a lot of the performers, and that hasn't happened with you. You have a lot of great detail. I mean, even the most specific Denny's, like you mentioned, even the slightest thing can add a lot to a story. And the fans appreciate that, fellow performers and wrestlers appreciate that as well. So that's really what helps the podcast stand out. And like you mentioned, you just did the Austin 316 episode, the Hogan episode a week before that, as we're speaking right now. In the last 5 months since you started the show, has any one episode really stood out to you as being your favorite to record and all the feedback you've gotten from it from fans?
Wow. Any one episode. I mean, there's been some, I tell you what, the perception of the overall sort of Double J career
Mhm.
has been unique, but Conrad has said, and that's why he is so good at what he does because he's like, Jeff, it may not be important to you, but don't think that and keep your mouth shut. Just free flow and let it roll and let us decide whether it's important or not. And so there's been little tidbits on the story of, quote unquote, me holding up Vince McMahon, the good housekeeping match in Cleveland that night and sort of start to finish. Conrad did 3 episodes on the foundation and the beginning of TNA. And there is still, and that was 3 months ago, I still get quite a bit of feedback that folks that didn't know TNA or didn't watch it that are engaged, and that's going to, I guess you could say, pay dividends in the weeks and months and years to come because they sort of understand the story. But the Hogan, the Vince, the feedback on just sort of hearing, and the Austin, it's early, but the feedback, but no, I've never, there's been multiple people over the years that have asked me to do the proverbial shoot interviews. I had no interest in that. I didn't, the shoot interviews. What's the upside to that? I've always been a forward thinker and what's going to happen. And I'm a promoter, obviously, that, what's the next TV show or pay-per-view or live event? I'm a promoting thinking forward, but telling the story behind the story and even some of the things about David Arquette and how going back in that arena, Kemper Arena, basically about a year later from Owen's passing. So all the stories connect because they're all coming from my world. Pardon the pun. That's just good.
Yeah.
But there's not any one that stands out, but you can look at the YouTube views and we get the feedback on the downloads and folks, there's a lot of them that you can just see, wow, the Hogan or the Owen or
Mhm.
the first TNA episode just sort of went through the roof in so many ways. It's been cool. So that's something that again, I'm a numbers guy, business guy. I really dig into the numbers on, okay, the downloads and just all that. It's been really cool from the business component as well.
And it helps too that fans have a certain day to look forward to. It's cool sometimes when an episode drops randomly, but you had the show and ad-free shows on Sunday. It comes out on Tuesday, widespread, all the popular podcast platforms. So it kind of gives people a schedule of stuff to look forward to on their ride to work or on their ride home or whatever. Like you said before, kind of listening to the stories and whatnot. It's cool. You mentioned TNA, and as we wind down here, I've always been curious because obviously, as the founder and creator of TNA, it's weird how it took so long for performers from TNA, like an AJ Styles, a Samoa Joe, for people like that to get to WWE. It always felt like there was this weird wall, like they wouldn't hire TNA people in WWE. And when, I mean, there would, we had the Christians come back and R-Truths and people like that, Ron Killings, some people here and there, but it wasn't until like 5-6 years ago when you went into the Hall of Fame. AJ Styles came into the company, Samoa Joe, even James Storm did a one-off. We see Bobby Roode there now. What was like that weird disconnect in your opinion that really like separated, like it was like a no, I don't know if there was a no hire policy, but as a fan, that's what it kind of looked like to me for whatever reason. Like they had this stigma. Oh, they were in TNA. We don't want them here. But for whatever reason that broke down. So obviously, being there for the origins of TNA, any insight you can add on that as to why that was for such a long time? And obviously we're not seeing that now, but for a long time, that was the case.
We could clip down talent by talent, but Christian's a good buddy.
Yeah.
But a guy like him, there was no amount of money we could pay him to stay. He
Mhm.
wanted to go back. A guy like AJ Styles, he knew he could go make more money.
Mhm.
But as TNA went along, and I'm talking about really 2002 to 2009 and 10, 11, and 12, he kept getting pay raises in the schedule, and he was building his name. So it's really a plethora of factors that come in, but also the WWE has changed over time.
Yep.
Period. It just end of story. They view things differently, and they obviously, as the TNA story goes, crawl, walk, run. We held on to the talent when our revenues increased, and that core, like you said, AJ and Joe and Bobby Roode, they never left. And look, AJ did, as everyone knows this, AJ went to Japan. He didn't go from TNA to WWE. And so Samoa Joe, he went to NXT. Bobby Roode went to NXT. So, but they didn't really leave and depart until, candidly, they had enough of TNA. So that homegrown talent, they never really got the opportunity to get, so to speak, on the market. I know that they were feelers, but we did everything in our power to hold on to them.
Mm-hmm.
But then guys like you said, I love Truth, and he's timeless, my friend. But he wanted to go back. He just did. One of my best buds in the world, Road Dogg.
Yep.
He was with us for a lot of years, and then he actually went to India for us and scouted talent for Rinka King. But when he came home, he just said, Jeff, and look, we're best of buds, but he's like, hey man, I'm going back. I've got a chance. I'm going to make a lot more money and the opportunity. So it's on a case by case basis.
Yeah, it obviously depends on the person. And it's crazy. I mean, the Forbidden Door kind of started in TNA years ago when you guys were working with the AAAs and the New Japans. And people kind of forget about that. The Forbidden Door is not a new thing. And we're kind of seeing that now with
either. Candidly, it was, but it was, look at, I'm probably a real good example. When my contract expired, I left. But that Attitude Era, it was the beginning of Guaranteed Money and Hall and Nash and Hogan and everything that went with it. A lot of people remember that era because it was such an intense rivalry and war. But and prior to that, New Japan and WCW worked together. I mean, the NWO concept and everything that went with that. And then, Vince has worked with, he worked with Memphis. He worked with the startup promotion SWS in Japan.
Yep.
So things like that have gone down through the years. I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, but Super Clash 3 was the Tennessee territory, Minnesota and Gagne, Texas and Fritz, so the Forbidden Door has been around for years and years and years.
Yeah. And we're kind of seeing that now in the podcasting industry. People can hear all about it on your show, My World, every Tuesday on all the popular podcast platforms. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Sunday as well on adfreeshows.com. Hearing all about the Attitude Era, like you just mentioned, way more detail on TNA, your WCW days, WWE, and everything else in between. It's such a great show, Jeff. Congrats on all the success. It's been an awesome last couple of months. When do we find out what the results of the poll, by the way, of the most recent contest?
As I sit here,
Yep.
I started my day early at this desk, but I found out Friday night. Said, "Hey, you're going to find out Monday." So at some point today, Graham, I want a big party thrown for me. No, I'm kidding. Today, but I've said it. When I looked at the amount and our competition in that, it's just it blows me away that we're even listed in there. At the end of the day, wrestling is still a niche product. No matter if you combine so many different things, and we're much more mainstream than we were. But at the end of the day, NFL, it's cool that we were nominated. I'll just say that.
Yeah, awesome stuff. And regardless of the result, congrats again for even being nominated. That's an awesome honor considering the 2021 that you've had, Jeff. Thanks so much for the time. Like I said, people can check out the show every Tuesdays, Sundays on the respective platforms. And I appreciate the time, Jeff. This has been awesome.
All right, Graham, you're supposed to be a 2021, 2022 journalist. You're supposed to say, "Hey, Jeff, where can they find?" I'm kidding.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Website, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm messing with you, dude. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, Jeff. Real Jeff Jarrett, right? Is that the handle on all your socials?
Everything. And the website.
Perfect. People can find you there, Jeff. Like I said, thanks for the time, Jeff. Awesome meeting you last week and great talking to you today as well.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too.